You have a career strategy. You know exactly what you are building. You watched how your institution moves. Patterns first, then the thing underneath the thing. You know which relationships matter. You know which rooms you need to be in before a decision gets made. You are not drifting. You have never drifted. You just probably are running it underground. I spent 33 years inside finance and technology at the senior level. I ran it underground too. And I want to talk about what that cost me and what it may already be costing you. Because here is what I know: the day you look up and do not recognize where you are, that is not a failure of effort. That is what happens when a strategy stays invisible long enough to stop working for you. The career planning you do for yourself happens entirely inside your own head. No architecture written down, no framework, no one else in the room. And that was probably a deliberate choice, a calculation you made a long time ago, probably without naming it as a calculation. That running your strategy covertly was the safer move. And at the level you operate at, that was probably not a wrong call. Because you watch what happened to the women who moved too openly in their own direction. The label they got, the doors that closed, the way visible ambition got treated as a threat. The lesson landed. You kept your strategy unspoken, unofficial, entirely self contained. What you have not looked at closely is what that cost you. Because a strategy that lives only inside your head is still a strategy. It is also missing structural elements you would never accept as absent from any initiative you ran professionally. So let me name them. Because once you see what is structurally missing, you cannot unsee it. First, it cannot be sponsored. The people in your organization with influence over what happens next for you cannot advocate for a direction they do not know exists. You have sponsors or people who could function as sponsors, and they are working without the one piece of information that would make them actually useful to you, where you are trying to go. They are speaking to your capability, your track record. That is worth something. It is worth considerably less than a sponsor who knows the specific move and is positioned to help you make it. Every quarter you run your strategy underground is a quarter you're leaving that momentum on the table. Second, it cannot survive disruption. You have lived through enough reorgs to know that the leaders who land well on the other side are not the ones who executed most loyally until the moment everything changed. They are the ones with a clear enough sense of their own direction to reposition quickly when the structure shifted. A strategy that lives entirely in your head has no architecture you can carry into a new org chart. When disruption hits, you rebuild from scratch in real time while managing everything else. Third, it cannot be calibrated. You are making strategic adjustments based entirely on your own judgment, with no outside perspective, no trusted challenge, no one to tell you when you are being more conservative than the situation actually requires. You would never run a business unit on that information diet. You are running your career on it. I want to tell you what happened to me early in my banking career because it's the clearest illustration I know of what stops being possible when you stay covert and what opens up when you stop. I moved across the country for a role that three men had already decided I would not be filling while I was moving across the country. I arrived to find my position changed, my title gone. A roommate was sent to my door to tell me because no one in leadership would do it directly. HR just kind of shrugged and said, "We can't help." My new manager said, when I confronted him about this, said I was not qualified. And for 3 months after that, I had to sit in the security lobby every evening and wait for someone to escort me to my floor because I was not given an access badge. And if I was not at my workstation at the start time, my pay was docked. I was already in the building, normally an hour to 45 minutes early. What changed everything was not outlasting them, though I did do that. It was being the only person willing to put my name on the record when a senior leader needed a witness. Everyone else calculated the risk and stepped back. Now, those repercussions that they were calculating were very, very real with these leaders. I was not afraid. I made a different calculation about what my strategy actually required. Within a week, I was working in a new position, working days, reporting directly to that senior leader. He became a sponsor in the fullest sense. He put me in rooms, sought my perspective on things, helped me think about what came next, recommended me for positions I had not yet considered. None of that was available to me while I was running my strategy entirely on my own. The sponsorship was only possible because I stopped being covert at exactly the right moment. And then there is the other version of this, the one that happens without a single dramatic moment, the one I think more of you will recognize. Later in my career, a reorg moved me from a role I had built with real authority into a project manager's title and role. The work I had done, the teams I had led, the results I had delivered, none of it transferred in any formal sense, nor was there really any recognition of those accomplishments. In a conversation with my new manager about what advancement looked like from here, she said, "Oh, you could move up to PM level 5. That was the entire answer. One level. No acknowledgement of anything that came before. I made a decision in that moment. I stopped pushing upward inside that structure. I stayed. I performed. I ran circles around most of my peers. I did my manager's job alongside my own. But the strategy I had once run with full conviction, the one that had a direction and a destination, went deep underground. I told myself it was a reasonable response to a demonstrated pattern of trapped doors, and it was. It was also the moment I stopped giving my own direction the same rigor I brought to everything else. The strategy did not disappear. It got small enough to feel safe. And small enough to feel safe is not the same thing as good enough to get you where you are capable of going. Here is the thing I want you to sit with. The decision to run your strategy underground was not irrational. It was a precise response to a real environment. You were paying attention. The calculation protected you in ways that mattered. The problem is that a calculation made inside one environment has a way of running past its original context. You are at a level now where the leaders around you are absolutely running intentional strategies for themselves, where the institution is not going to surface you for the next move based on execution alone. The approach that served you well at 35 is probably the thing slowing you down at 48. And you have not stopped to check whether the original threat assessment still applies, because you have been too busy delivering to notice the calculation was still running. You do not need a new capability. You need to point the one you already have at the problem you've been treating as too politically sensitive to touch directly. You think 3 moves ahead for the business. You can do the same for yourself. What position do you need to be in when things land where they're actually headed? Which of your current moves are in service of your real direction? And which are habits, reflexes, or strategies that have been policing themselves into a size that still feels safe to keep hidden. The strategy does not have to be performed or announced. It has to be real, specific, held with enough clarity you can resource it, update it, and let the right people know what they are helping you to build. So I want to leave you with the question that sits underneath all of this. Not what do you want to achieve, but what is your current strategy actually costing you? And are you willing to look at that honestly? Because most of the leaders I work with come in thinking they had a career advancement problem. What we found together was that they had been running a strategy that had gotten small and then stayed small long after the original reason for shrinking it was gone. And one day, they looked up and didn't recognize where they were. That is the mirror problem, not a failure of ambition, not a failure of execution. A strategy that ran underground for so long, it stopped serving the person running it. You already have the strategy. The question is whether you are willing to run it like you mean it. If this landed, please click the thumbs up button, consider subscribing, and share it with someone you know who needs to hear this message. I post every Wednesday. This is SoulFIRE Leadership, where we talk about what it actually takes to lead and advance at a senior level. Two things before you go. If you want to see what your current approach is actually costing you across 6 specific dimensions, the SoulFIRE Leadership Audit was built for that. It's free, it's worth 20 to 30 minutes of your time. Just check the link in the description below. I'll see you next Wednesday.